The black SUV stopped at our estate gate at exactly 1:15 a.m. The driver gave me the name of a man who had been dead for 10 years. I checked the estate records twice. His name was still there. But the car was not. Before we begin, please subscribe to this channel for more emotional African folktales based on realistic events. Now, let's begin. My name is Emeka, and I worked as a night security guard at a wealthy estate in Lagos. I was 32 years old at the time. The estate was quiet at night. Most of the houses were large, with high fences, security cameras, and electric gates. My job was simple. I checked every car that entered. I checked visitors. I wrote down their names. I made sure nobody entered without permission. I had worked there for almost 3 years, so I knew most of the residents. One Friday night, something happened that I still cannot explain. It was around 1:15 a.m. I was sitting inside the small security booth near the main gate. I was tired. Most people were already sleeping. Suddenly, I saw headlights coming down the road. A black SUV slowly approached the gate. I stood up. The vehicle stopped directly in front of me. The windows were dark. I walked toward the driver's side. "Good evening, sir. Who are you visiting?" The window slowly came down. The window slowly came down. A man was sitting behind the wheel. He looked about 50 years old. He wore a dark shirt. His face was calm. He looked at me and said, "I'm going to see Mr. Benson." I knew the name. Mr. Benson was one of the richest people in the estate, but something felt strange. Mr. Benson had died many years earlier. I asked the driver, "Which Mr. Benson?" He gave me the full name, Charles Benson. My stomach tightened. That was the same man. Charles Benson had died 10 years earlier. I had never met him, but every security guard knew his name because his old house was still inside the estate. I told the driver, "Sir, Mr. Benson is no longer alive." The man looked at me. "That's impossible." I thought maybe he was drunk. I asked him who had invited him. He gave me another name, his wife. I checked the visitor book. Nobody had called. I told him he could not enter without confirmation. The man became annoyed. "You people are making this difficult." I remained calm. "Sir, please wait." I went into the security office. Our estate had an old computer system containing records of previous residents. I searched Charles Benson's name. His file appeared. Charles Benson, resident, 2008 to 2016, status, deceased. I stared at the screen. I checked again. The date of death was exactly 10 years earlier. I returned to the gate. The SUV was still there. I asked the driver for identification. He reached into his pocket, but before he could give me anything, my supervisor called from inside the office, "Emeka." I turned around. "What happened? Come here." I quickly walked inside. My supervisor looked worried. He had been watching the CCTV cameras. He pointed at the monitor. "Where is the car?" I looked at the screen. The gate camera showed me standing outside, but there was no SUV. I became confused. I looked through the window. The SUV was still directly in front of me. I could see its headlights. I could see the driver. I told my supervisor, "It's right there." He looked outside. His face changed. "I don't see anything." I thought he was joking. I walked back toward the gate. The driver was still sitting there. I could see him clearly. He looked at me. "Can I go now?" I stepped closer. Then I noticed something. There was no sound from the engine, no engine noise, no air conditioner, nothing. I looked at the ground. The SUV had no visible shadow under the bright security light. My heart began beating faster. I stepped backward. The driver suddenly said, "Tell Charles I'm sorry I couldn't come earlier. Who are you?" He did not answer. The window went up. The headlights turned off. For a few seconds, everything was dark. Then the headlights came back on, but the SUV was gone. I ran to the gate. There was nothing on the road, no car, no tire marks, nothing. My supervisor came outside. He looked at me. "What happened?" I could barely speak. I told him everything. He did not laugh. Instead, he walked into the office and opened an old file. Inside was a photograph of Charles Benson. My hands became cold. The man in the photograph looked exactly like the driver, not similar, exactly the same. I I asked my supervisor how Charles had died. He told me Charles had been killed in a car accident 10 years earlier. His black SUV had crashed on the highway while he was returning home. The strange thing was that the police report said the vehicle had been completely destroyed. I asked about the driver who had visited the gate. My supervisor said nobody knew. The next morning, we reported the incident to the estate manager. He checked the CCTV system. There was no recording of the SUV entering. There was no recording of it leaving, but there was one strange thing. At exactly 1:15 a.m., the camera showed the gate opening by itself. Nothing was visible. The manager was worried. He contacted the police. The police checked the road outside the estate. Again, nothing was found. A few days later, I learned something else. Charles Benson had a younger brother named Peter. Peter had disappeared from the area shortly after Charles died. Nobody knew where he had gone. I became curious. I asked one of the older security guards about him. He told me something that made the whole story even stranger. Peter had been driving the car with Charles on the night of the accident. Charles died. Peter survived. But Peter disappeared afterward. Nobody had seen him for years. I asked why. The older guard said Peter had blamed himself for the accident. It was from the estate manager. He told me Peter had been found. He was living in another city. The police had located him after someone recognized his name in an old document. Peter came to the estate. I met him. When I told him about the black SUV, he became silent. Then he asked me one question. What did the driver say? I repeated the words, "Tell Charles I'm sorry I couldn't come earlier." Peter began crying. He explained that Charles had been angry with him before the accident. They had argued because Peter was supposed to drive Charles home but arrived late. Charles decided to drive himself. That was when the accident happened. Peter had carried the guilt for 10 years. He believed Charles died because of him. He had wanted to visit the estate many times but was too afraid. I asked him why the driver would say those words. He shook his head. I don't know. Peter eventually visited Charles's old house. He stood outside for a long time. Then he said, "I'm sorry." He cried. After that night, nobody reported seeing the black SUV again. I eventually left the security job. People sometimes ask me whether I believe in ghosts. I honestly don't know. Maybe the strange car was a mistake in the CCTV system. Maybe someone was playing a cruel joke. Maybe there was another explanation. But I remember what I saw. I remember the driver. I remember his face. And I remember the black SUV disappearing without making a sound. Most importantly, I remember the message he left. Sometimes people carry guilt for many years because they never get the chance to say what is in their hearts. Peter finally got that chance, and maybe that was the only reason the mysterious car came to our gate that night. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more emotional African folktales based on realistic events. See you in the next story.